Welcome to Some More Stories, tales of transformation inspired by being outdoors. My name is Marianne Rowe. I'm a founding teacher of Monterey Bay Meditation Studio and a psychotherapist in private practice in Pacific Grove, California, on the land of the Ohlone Rumsen people. Over the past few years, I've been blessed with meeting a number of extraordinary human beings who have extraordinary relationships with the outdoors. Whether working as a scientist, a researcher, an educator, an attorney, or an environmental activist, each of these individuals engaged their heart and their mind, as well as their spirit, in their relationship with the outdoors. Each brings a sense of reverence, compassion, service, and reciprocity into this relationship with the universe. And each has a story of being transformed by the outdoors and has graciously agreed to share this story with us. Sitting by the campfire with me today to offer some more stories is Stephan Martin. Steve is an astronomer, educator, and author of Cosmic Conversations, who has taught astronomy, physics, and consciousness studies at colleges, universities, and learning centers across the United States for over 25 years. Steve frequently offers experiential workshops on stargazing, astronomy, and personal transformation at observatories, learning centers, and other popular venues all over the world. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Marianne. It's good to be here.
Thank you for joining us to share how your perspective and even your life has been transformed by your relationship with the universe. With respect to the original indigenous inhabitants and steward of the land that we live on, we begin our conversation with a land acknowledgement. Whose traditional lands are you on?
Yeah, I want to acknowledge the traditional lands of the Eastern Band of Cherokee and the Catawba people.
Yes. Yeah. So, Steve, having taken several courses taught by you, and as I'm currently reading your book, Cosmic Conversations, I've had direct experience of the reverence and wonder that you feel as the heart of your relationship with the universe. And I'm curious about the beginning of this profound relationship. What were you very curious about as a child? And how has that curiosity been part of your relationship with the earth and universe?
Yeah, it's a great question, Marianne. And, I think I had a pretty ordinary upbringing, but I was like every other child. I was innately curious. I mean, I spent a lot of time outdoors. I grew up in South Florida, spent a lot of time in the Everglades, in the ocean, in the Florida Keys. And then I went to visit my grandparents who lived in the mountains of North Georgia in the southern Appalachians. And I spent all day outside playing in the creeks and the trees and the ponds and the woods there. And I spent a lot of time in nature growing up. And as a child, I was interested in everything. So I'd be one of those kids who was always looking under rocks just to see what was there. Of course, seeing the stars at night, exploring the woods. So I was an explorer, an adventurer, just full of youthful energy and curiosity. And then when I learned to read, there's a whole nother world that opened up. I mean, the world of human culture and learning about other places and times. And we go to the library and come back with stacks of books and, wake up early and start reading about everything. And that actually became, a problem for me when it came to me to decide, well, what do I want to focus on? It's like, well, I know I'm going to study everything because that's the universe. So I decided to study the universe for one reason, because it included everything I was interested in. I was interested in humans and animals and plants and poetry and literature. It's like, well, I'll just study the biggest thing there is. This is a very, innocent perspective. I'll study the universe.
I love that. And Steve, even though you tell that story in past tense, that energy is still there. Your eyes light up and that smile, I mean, it's alive in you. It hasn't gone away at all.
I'm still interested in everything and everyone. So it's just such a joy.
Indeed, indeed. Well,
Yeah.
that makes a joyful life, doesn't it? Curiosity and interest and engagement.
It
Yeah.
really does. Yeah. Yeah. And just to follow up on your earlier question, Marianne, even though I was interested in everything, there was something particular about the stars that drew me. So I had a
Ah.
particular draw, towards the night sky and the
Mhm.
stars that was just very, very mysterious, very visceral. Just,
Mm.
I remember, going through all these ideas when I was very little. It's like, I wanted to be a fireman, I wanted to be a policeman, I wanted to be all the usual things. But then when I was about 8 years old, I just became captured by the night sky. Just something about, I knew that's it. Just the beauty of the stars and the mystery of them. And I knew that's it. I want to spend the rest of my life just finding out what that is and more about that. So there's some kind of relationship that came early on that was ignited in me. And I was very fortunate to have that happen.
Oh,
And that's so literally that passion and allurement for the night sky and the universe has been, in a sense, my guiding star my whole life. I followed that, and
oh,
that's been really this thread of allurement that's carried me through all my life adventures, whatever I've been doing.
wow.
Yeah.
I love that word allurement. I remember hearing you use that word in, I think, the first class that I taught, course that I took from you, and that is an ongoing theme about how powerful that allurement is. And I wonder if you could say a bit more about how allurement has shown up in your work and your values. Just how is that your guiding star?
Yeah, it's a great question. And allurement is such a wonderful word that captures it. And I get this from Brian Swim, the cosmologist Brian
Mhm.
Swim, who really, started using the word in a very broad way, and the way that I'm talking about it now. And it's a sense of being not just attracted to, not just fascinated, but captured by something. It's like there's some kind of relationship.
Mhm.
And, one way that people think of gravity is as some kind of allurement, but the allurement's mutual. It's always mutual. We are drawn to the earth as the earth is drawn to us, and it's an equal and opposite attraction. And so
Mm.
it feels like that. So I'm drawn to the stars, and yet I feel that something in the stars is drawn to me at the same time. So there's that mutuality when there's that fascination. And it's like we're entering into this relationship of fascination together, whether it's me and the tree, or me and the person, or me and the stars. There's
Yes.
something happened that deepens there that has a sense of togetherness.
Hmm.
And when that togetherness is there, it's just a kind of relating. It's
Yes.
not necessarily me or you or, you know, I or thou, but it's just some kind of relating that just seems simpler and deeper than and greater than the
Mhm.
two parts that are coming together.
Absolutely. That there's me, there's you, and there's the space in between, and the space in between doesn't separate us. It actually, when we are conscious of it, it connects us in an even greater way than either of the individual perceptions.
Yes, yes, you say it so well. Exactly.
Ah, yeah, I love that. Mm,
Yeah, and I can sense that you know that too. I mean, you were coming
mm,
alive when we were talking about this. So I think this isn't something mysterious. It's like I think people have access to this,
mm,
within themselves. This capacity is there. We all
mhm,
have the capacity to be allured because that's how the universe is woven together, is with these fields
mhm.
of allurement that include all of us.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And a word that I hear you use often is curiosity. And so what role do you think that curiosity plays in activating this allurement?
Well, curiosity is part of the expression of that. To say, I want to know more about you. I want to know,
Mhm,
what you are, who you are. I want to be in relationship with you. I'm curious, and that
mhm,
curiosity brings a kind of openness and engaged receptivity. That's another phrase I
Mm-hmm.
like to use, is where we're kind of attentive, but we're also open and able to receive the other.
Yes.
Yeah,
And so the other, I mean, that can be like another human being. I mean, it sounds almost like falling in love. And we fall in love, we usually think about with another human being, but it could be with a tree or the ocean or a star.
absolutely. And it could be even something like, for me, it was the field of astronomy. I had to read every book on astronomy. I was just in love with the field. And,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And, of course, I brought the universe into my room. I had a big moon map on my wall and telescopes and all that. And of course, rock collections and chemistry collections too. But just this
Uh-huh.
fascination, it's like you want to be close to that, what you love. And so we brought it into my
Yes.
room and brought in rocks and sticks. And, I have a 7-year-old. He's always bringing home natural objects too. It's like, okay,
Yay.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yay. I know that does a papa's heart good to see that same curiosity and excitement
But that's so
in
natural.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So Steve, was there a human or a more than human that fed this fire? I mean, you were aware of the fire on your own, but um, what kept this fire alive and continuing to grow to deepen in you?
I had a couple good science teachers and teachers who kind of saw my interest, and they were able to kind of reflect that and recognize that.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't need a lot. I had a fire that was going in me that was pretty strong, but it was supported by being in the natural world, by being
Ah,
in an open, unstructured space of being in, the community of the more than human world, that really,
mhm.
you know, kind of let that fire kind of simmer and go on its own, and nothing interfered with it. And so it was just kind of fine, just, simmering away on its own. Yeah.
That's great. It's self-fueled. Just
Yeah.
fueled by
Yeah.
itself. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and my parents were very supportive. I mean, they
Oh,
didn't have
that's
any
great.
background in astronomy or science, but they got me a telescope and they got me books and things, and they kind of let me go at it. And
Oh,
so that was so wonderful.
that's wonderful. Yes, yes. So now, do you have any practices or ways of engagement that I mean, it sounds like the fire just runs on its own, that it doesn't need stoking, but do you have things that you do that let you feel that and freshen that?
It's a good question. I think for myself, it's, as I've kind of matured in my kind of spiritual and um, developmental outlook, kind of reflecting on and noticing what that allurement feels like, to recognize that there's a
Mm,
there's an actual capacity or feeling that's here that can be attuned to, that can be tuned into,
mhm,
and that
mhm,
the more I'm able to be attuned to that, the more that there's some kind of active or responsive guidance from that.
mm,
And it may not be
mhm,
guidance in a particular direction, maybe guidance in a particular way of being.
mm,
So there's information, or there's a relationship that's available to me through this allurement.
mhm.
Uh,
What do you mean, a particular way of being? Would you say more about that?
yeah, well, and it's always mysterious, because it might be, it's like, okay, I want to know more about that star, but maybe that star is there as a placeholder to bring me into a more expansive place of feeling connected to everything,
Mm,
or connected to my heart, or connected to
mm,
some other part of myself. So this
mm.
this thread of allurement,
Yeah.
I think, is part of this innate drive of wholeness in the psyche, where there's an intelligence that's kind of guiding us towards more and more wholeness of who we are.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And to
As
to
a,
recognize that the kinship that is shared, that it's not star other. And I look at it, I study it, and it's all objective, but it's star me or star us, that there's something that is there's the interbeing aspect that yeah,
yes,
that's awakened in there. Yeah.
yes, yes. Well, and also as a psychotherapist, there's an innate drive of wholeness in the psyche, right? The
Yes.
psyche knows the direction for its own healing and wholeness.
Yes.
And of course, allurement is also part of this directionality of the psyche, whether it's
Yes.
an individual or the cosmic psyche. It's moving towards some kind of greater wholeness and fulfillment of itself. That's
Yeah.
at least how it feels to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So now I want to just pick up on that phrase, cosmic psyche. Would and I have some ideas about that, but I wonder if you would be willing to say a little bit more about that, as in just for folks that that might be a new term.
Yeah, and I can only speak from my own experience because people
Sure.
talk about this. Carl Jung talked about the anima mundi and
Hmm.
the cosmic soul, but just that kind of greater sense of wholeness and maybe that field of knowing that feels more than the personal. So when I'm out in the woods or I'm out in nature, it feels like there's just a larger field of, I don't know what to say. You could say it's intelligence. You could say it's got a sense of holding or support, or at times there's a sense of love and connection that's there, but just that sense of something that's greater than ourselves or greater than our tiny little egos. So I
Hmm.
think whenever we're in touch with that, even whether it's in ourselves or in the other or in a larger environment, that's it. It's hard to say what it is, but you can we can point to it and say,
Hmm.
I know it. I know it when I feel it, even if I can't see it with my eyes.
Hmm.
And
Or put it into words that, but there's a certain knowing that's beyond words or beyond our regular five senses. It's
yeah,
hmm
and you can talk about it forever, and that still doesn't exhaust what it is because it's always something more than that, more than what
exactly,
words can capture. Yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
on top of that, it's evolving. So
exactly.
it could
It's a
change.
relationship. Exactly. It's not static. Yeah,
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. I
yeah.
love that.
Well, and just to touch on a question you
Yes.
had earlier to follow up with that specific practices.
Hmm.
Um, right now I'm reading a book on qigong, and they have these kind of cosmic earth meditations. So I'm going to try those. I haven't done much with them, but I
Yeah.
also like just going up and putting my hand on a tree and just feeling the
Yes.
energy between myself and the
Mhm.
tree and feeling that relationship
Yes.
and being open to that tree,
Yes.
being open to the
Yes.
other and being open to myself to the other.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think it's so important as children that they have contact with the natural world, directly, because
Hmm.
there's something in them that's, being sparked in that knowing.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. And that that's there as children, and then somehow it as we if we're as we get older, somehow that goes underground, so to speak. We can kind of lose touch with that. It doesn't disappear, but it just gets kind of grown over. So I'm
yeah.
wondering, is it possible for folks if they've just kind of, well, nature, yeah, it's nice. I mean, so folks that have gotten into that sort of state of being, is it possible to have them remember, to have them come back in touch with that excitement and that curiosity and sensing of allurement?
Absolutely. I think you put it well in that it's just been covered over. It's still there.
Mm.
It's part of our intrinsic core. We can't lose our connection with nature because it's always there as part of who we are.
Mhm.
And you hear about all the benefits that are coming in, that maybe the rational mind needs to know, going outside barefoot and grounding yourself in nature, or
Mhm.
spending time in the natural world and how good that is for stress relief and, breathing fresh
Mhm.
air. So these are all practices that we all know and have access to.
Yes.
And so I would just encourage people to have an open attitude of curiosity and play around. It's like, well, let's just try this as an experiment. Go
Yes.
outside and lay on the ground for 5 minutes and see how you feel.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
just notice how you feel before and afterwards. Chances are you'll
Yes.
feel much more refreshed, inspired, relaxed, and let that feeling of the effect of that be your guide.
Lovely. Lovely.
Yeah,
So it really is about sensing, rather than figuring things out. Now, if the figuring things out or the knowing or being able to name things, certainly that's useful and has its place. I mean, that's half of oversimplified, but that's half of our brain.
yeah,
And then there's this other half that also is wanting to be activated, so that there is that connection of knowing and sensing.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And
As,
then there's something else about for me walking. Something about walking is very
mm,
integrating and connecting at the same time.
mm,
So something about,
mm,
the right and left brains being integrated through walking.
yes,
I remember,
yes.
there's a quote by the poet Wallace Stevens. I think he said something like, "Sometimes the truth depends upon a walk around the lake."
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that wonderful? It's like we get,
Yes.
we're such a, a mentally centered society right now.
Mm,
Sometimes it's nice just to go for a walk and clear your head and just
mm.
feel yourself in the body. And there's something with just that movement that feels very soothing and integrated for me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Imagining that when you say walking, that's different from at least how I think about hiking, that hiking is there's a goal or, it's for the exercise, but the walking that I'm feeling that as you're talking is it's more like throw called sauntering or just
Yes.
touring. So it's not necessary. It's just to be and see and hear and feel what's there.
Exactly. Yeah. Sauntering, meandering. These are wonderful old words that really
Yes.
describe this kind of, perambulation throughout the environment. So, well, you just,
I love that one. I hadn't heard that one today.
yeah. Well, and you said
Yeah.
saunter. I mean, saunter means sentier, right? To be in touch with the sacred earth.
Ah, I did not know that.
I might not be getting it quite right, but there's something about that sense of
Yes.
sauntering. It's just kind of wandering, in an
Mm-hmm.
open way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I would just encourage people,
Yes.
just try it and see how it affects you. I mean, there's
Yes.
lots of prescriptions about why it's important, and structured
Yes.
practices that you can do, and but
Yes.
just try it and just see how it feels, and
Yeah.
let that be your guide, because let that be the
Yes.
birth of the relationship and the recovery of that
Absolutely.
childhood knowing that we all have
Absolutely.
access to.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just drop into our conversation. One of the invitations that I offer in my Being Outdoors course is an invitation called "What's in Motion," and and that's an invitation to walk slowly and notice what's in motion. But you can notice visually, you can notice auditorily, you can notice by feel. But we notice what is moving faster than we are. So when we walk slowly, then we'll see little things like spider webs in motion that we wouldn't see if we're just
Mm.
walking. And so it's literally downshifting to way, way slow
Yeah.
and way, way open. That's the noticing part of to just discover what's in motion. Yeah.
I love that. I hadn't
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that
Yeah.
perspective or that prompt before, but I
Yeah.
love that.
Give
Yeah,
it a try. Yeah.
I will for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Steve, with the profundity of and the aliveness of this relationship that you have with universe, how has that shaped what you value? How has that shaped your what's important to you in life?
Well, I recognize that the connection is simple and always available. And so it
Mm,
really cuts through a lot of, having to collect material things and, create, a certain outer life.
yes.
But of course, I'm still very curious. I'm still very, very adventurous. I love to travel and I love to explore and see new places.
Yes.
Uh, and that's a way of kind of getting to know new parts of the earth and new peoples and cultures. And there's a whole,
Mhm.
adventure and discovery aspect to
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Um, and so what I love about that is there's always something new. It's not a stale relationship because it's
Mhm.
alive, and there's always something I'm
Mhm.
learning about it and
Mhm.
being nourished by.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, yeah, yeah, and over time I've recognized, like, oh, I'm learning to value what the universe values. Right? It's not these, not these structures that are come in packages. It's just, recognizing the process, through which things are happening.
Mm.
It's being in line with the process and being in line with a sense of connectedness and relatedness and the deepening that's wanting to happen and just the natural unfoldment that's wanting to take place.
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm struck by that valuing of the process. I mean, because certainly in this culture, we tend to be very goal oriented, and are we there yet? And when is this going to change or go away or grow up? And so to really come home to having reverence for the miracle of the process itself, and how that brings us automatically into present moment.
yeah, right,
If we're tuning into process, we are just about what's happening right now.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another way of saying it. It's like being in the present moment,
Mhm.
is what the universe is doing right now, right?
Mm.
It is the universe right now.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
And part of it, Marianne, I think, is getting over this idea that the universe is somehow out there, like it's
Mhm,
stars and planets and things like that.
mhm,
But it's a dynamic process that's always changing and always different in every moment. So
mhm,
to get away from the idea of the universe being like a box that we're
mhm,
kind of wandering around in, versus
mhm,
recognizing, well, I am the form of the universe, and so is this other being, as it's appearing in
mhm,
this moment.
mhm.
That's a whole different perspective that leads to a whole different orientation on, life and our role in the universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As as we recognize that I love that distinction between we're not walking around in a box, that we are there is no box, and we are what we're walking around in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
And so with that, Steve, then does that mean that we're in some way co-creating, or we have some input into what is happening here?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're always co-creating with the larger whole.
Mhm.
Although, co-creating, I think is only one way of framing it, because it's really
Mhm.
the larger whole kind of acting through and as us.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
But you
Mhm.
can also think of it as a partnership. It's like, okay, I'm working together with the universe in my own small way,
Mhm.
and in my life, to
Mhm.
have something new emerge.
Mm.
So there's lots of different ways to kind of to frame that.
Right, yeah, because I can't play a flute if I don't have a flute, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Mm. So, as you are listening to universe, I mean, what are you learning? What's getting lit for you? I mean, I recognize that this changes probably moment to moment, but what are some things that arise for you as you're listening to the universe? What are you tuning into?
That I really don't know, and no one really knows what's going to happen next.
Mm.
So it's being in that place of not knowing. And
Mhm.
that's been a big part of the journey for me, because from an early age, I was a planner. It's like, I want to know what's
Mhm.
going to happen next week and the next year and all this stuff, and I want to figure out the universe so I can figure out what's going to happen next with it.
Mhm.
And really, no one knows, not even the universe knows what's going to happen next. So we're all kind of on the very edge of our
Mm.
seats, waiting to see what's going to happen next, in our horizon.
Mm.
And that's very expansive, and it can be scary, and it's just kind of being on the
Mhm.
precipice. But that's where the aliveness is. That's where things are actually happening. That's where the action
Right,
is taking place.
right,
Yeah, yeah,
right, right, right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here comes the question. So for folks who may, I mean, for folks who the being on the edge might be frightening, that might be a bit overwhelming. I mean, is there something that would be helpful for folks to remember or to hear, to because I'm imagining that there's a big difference if you're on the edge and you're all contracted and afraid, and
Yeah, yeah,
as opposed to you're in the edge, like, that person in that movie Titanic, where you're at the helm of, you know. And so how could that shift? I mean, I imagine rarely it occurs and quickly, but how could that be massaged so that there could be more of a opening to being on
yeah,
the edge?
yeah. Well, to recognize that this larger perspective that we're calling universe has always been there, right? It's been doing its thing for 13.8 billion years, and it hasn't missed a beat yet. Right? So it's there every single second in a very reliable way. So, it's incredibly reliable.
Yes.
And I love how, Thomas Berry puts this. It's like, this is what gave birth to the stars, the earth, and yourselves. How can we not trust it to sort of take care of the next moment?
Yes.
So it's connecting to that larger perspective in which we're held. That's completely reliable.
Wow.
It's been the source of, from which we were born. It's held us our whole lives. And so, of course, we need some faith to recognize it's going to hold us in the future, but so good so far, right? So we have every indication that this process or this cosmic perspective is trustworthy, reliable, and there, even when everything else seems to fall apart. You think, oh, my life is falling apart.
Right.
Well, what's it falling apart into? It's the universe is catching everything. This universe is always holding whatever we're struggling with. So it's a wonderful resource and a wonderful perspective.
Okay.
For so many people who are struggling right now, they need some kind of connection to something larger. It's like, oh, my life is, I'm losing everything. It's
Absolutely.
like, well, the universe is always there. It's yeah.
Okay. So that really is another layer of getting beyond this sort of skin encapsulated ego, that more at play than what's comfortable or convenient or easy, or that I even know. There's more at play, and if I can begin to trust that, and that might be helpful to, as Pema Chodron says, be comfortable in the uncertainty. That there's something larger that's got us.
Yeah. Well, and Marian, what you're doing with your outdoors conversations is so important, because take a walk in nature, lie on the ground and feel the support of the earth. It's been there. It's going to be there no matter what happens. Know that this is reliable.
Yes.
This earth is hundreds of millions of years old in your location. It's been here for, eons. And then, pay attention to the natural cycles of nature. Notice the signs of spring that are happening, where I am now. And I notice the changes in the night sky. So just notice the cycles and how reliable they are for nature. Flowers come up in the spring no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're going to happen no matter what. So look for what's really reliable.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a huge support, especially when things are changing and people have a hard time with all the changes naturally, right? We want to have something, we can hold on to. Well, it's good to kind of, pay attention to, well, what is it that doesn't change? Or what is it that's not changing when everything else is changing? That can be really helpful for people to get a sense of grounding.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just letting that in, and to really, there's knowing it, and then there's really knowing it. So actually having a visceral sense of something has my back, that there's something, and it's not all up to me,
Exactly. Yeah, of course.
There's help, there's support if I'm in alignment with the bigger picture. If I'm in alignment, that there's support in that. Yeah.
And there's something co-creating with me in every moment. So there's something else that's there that's co-creating with me, no matter what the situation, even if it's very difficult. There's something that's coming together. Yeah.
Boy, is that really helpful for folks to hear right now, when it does feel like everything is falling away, and to hold that everything is falling away, but that's part of a larger process.
Yeah.
That's
and just to let people know, that larger process, that expansiveness can sometimes be scary for people. And maybe what people need is more a sense of grounding. It's like, take your shoes and socks off and feel your feet on the ground and get the sense of grounded, on the earth and in your body. I tend to go towards more expansive dimensions, because that's what I'm naturally drawn to. But I often need a sense of grounding to kind of balance that out. So we might notice that we're drawn in one direction or the other towards being overgrounded or overexpanded. It's really
Mhm.
about balance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And 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 so going big and going grounded and going critters. I mean, just to watch like an ant, and this ant, regardless of what's happening in the economy, this ant is like doing its job, so that
Yeah,
there's ongoing purposefulness, in
yeah,
the tiniest of beings. Um,
very much so.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And this also brings us back to allurement. And people could ask themselves, they can say, "What am I lured to?" But really, it's like, "What am I curious about now?" And that
Mm,
could be something that they can be a guide for them. It's like, if I lost my job, I've got to have all this other things happening. It's like, well, what can I be curious about now? Really, in terms of what's drawing them in a very personal way. Yeah.
so there's an element of listening, of being quiet internally so that we can hear, because I'm imagining, I mean, there's lots of really loud and big noises and lots
Hmm.
of calls or grabs for our attention, but that's
Yeah.
not what we're talking about here. That what we're talking about here is something that's almost softer and quieter, or that we hear when we're quiet, that we can sense. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it helps to go for a walk in nature and just kind of
Yes.
clear your head and just kind of feel. It's like, oh, what
Mhm.
was I curious about when I was a child? It's like, oh, I always wanted
Yeah.
to play piano or something like that.
Mhm.
And to recognize each of those as a little, nudge from the universe that this could be something to follow up on, just kind of
Yes.
explore.
Yes.
As an example for me, when COVID came and I was in lockdown, I suddenly wanted to build sundials, which isn't strange for an astronomer, of course. But I'd never even thought about sundials before that. But it came into my mind. It's like, I
Uh-huh.
really want to know about sundials. And so I recognized, well,
Wow.
this is an allurement. And so I just went with it. I started going in the garage and, building sundials of all different kinds, and that was tremendously grounding, and also working
Yes.
with my hands. And there's something
Yes.
about that. And I still to this
Mhm.
day don't know why I was obsessed with sundials,
Yes, yes.
but it seemed like it was just a natural pull. It's like, I'm going to follow this. And
Mhm.
I'm just
Mhm.
being obedient to that pull.
I love that. I love that. Um, yeah, and, I'm just, ideas are popping into my head about, well, what would that have been about? And what comes to me is like you were talking earlier about what stays the same. That what are the cycles? What stays the
Yeah.
same when everything is up in the air, and also the creative spirit
Yeah.
of this is something brand new. So that activates all kinds of neural pathways,
Hmm.
and working with your hands of doing something that then, and here's today's sundial. Yeah,
Right. Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
all these kind of new benefits and capacities came out through
right.
just following that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's kind of an everyday example, but there might be other ones that your listeners can connect to. Just
absolutely.
just a little tickles, like, oh, I wonder, I've always wondered about that. And just
Yes.
see if you just follow that, just in the spirit of curiosity, just to kind of see where it leads you
Mhm,
and what comes alive in you through that.
mhm. And you may or may not ever know what that was about, but when that tickle is there, it's there for a reason. There's something, there's a connect the dots. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if you don't know why. It's like, I don't know why I'm
Yes.
drawn to this, but I just am.
Right. Right.
Follow that.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
cue. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because then it's
I
not coming from your conditioned mind. You don't know. It's like, oh, I'm
exactly.
supposed to like this, right? Or everyone
Exactly.
else likes this. So it's like,
Ex
no, just notice those little hints and tickles from the universe.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. I mean, because mm, as I look back on my life now, there are certain points where I would do something that made absolutely no sense in the sort of linear perspective. But it was like, no, I'm going to move to Pacific Grove. I've never been here before, but I came here and I fell in love with it. And it's this where I'm to be here. And best decisions I've made in my life over and over again that at the time made no sense. I had no idea, but to just do that because it's like, fortunately I can.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very blessed to have that much freedom to be able to do that as those opportunities
sure.
rose. Yeah.
Well, and what a leap of faith that was, when you did it the first time, and that just the
Yeah.
sense of trust that was there
Yeah.
is really, really just
Yeah.
something to, be aware
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job here, nothing. And other than just that calling, that calling of you're home. It's like, okay.
yeah, yeah.
But it is a big sense of trust. Yes.
It is. It is. And I love how you say it's a calling towards home, right? To recognize
Mm-hmm.
there's some kind of calling that's calling us
Mm-hmm.
home in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe calling us home in the larger sense, home to our heart or home to our place in the universe.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. So what questions regarding universe are you holding at this moment in time?
That's a great question. I mean, I try to be just as open as possible to
Mm-hmm.
what's coming, into my life now, and paying
Mm-hmm.
attention to those allurements. It's like, okay, what's
Yes.
drawing my curiosity right now,
Mm-hmm.
or what's drawing my passion right now?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What is drawing your passion right now, Steve?
right, right in this moment, I can sort of feel the whole body fullness of this allurement. It's like, by
Mhm.
talking about allurement and by following it and reflecting upon it, I feel a sense of completeness. I mean, I'm feeling very complete. I'm feeling very fulfilled. I'm feeling
Mhm.
very much in my heart. I'm feeling very tender, very open, vulnerable.
Yeah.
Um, just, yeah, wonderful. It's very
Yeah.
satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And your eyes are lit up. They're
yeah,
lit. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And
Mm.
and I guess the only question I'm asking is there a way I could be even more open to, this cosmic perspective, or any other
Mhm.
ways that
Mhm.
this wants to inform my life more?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
just being open to
Mhm.
messages and intuitions and
Yeah.
urges. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a great question to ask the universe. Is there a way that I can be more open, or what do I need to let go of now to have more space?
yeah,
Sometimes that question, at least in my experience, it leads to some unexpected events that I deal with. The computer will crash, or you know
yeah,
do a major physical kind of move or something like that. But
yeah,
then, but trusting that, well, this is supposed to be happening because it is happening. I mean, that makes it much easier instead of arguing with the reality of, no,
yeah, yeah.
this
That's
shouldn't
true.
be happening.
Right, right. And I love the question you're asking. It's like, well, what am I ready to let go of now? Sometimes it needs to be
Yes.
acknowledged and let go of
Yes.
before something new can come in.
Exactly.
And it's remarkable, how patient the universe is. It's just waiting and there and available
Yeah.
whenever we're ready. It's like no
Yeah.
rush. It's been
Yeah.
doing this for
Yeah.
13.8 billion years. There's no
Yeah.
rush
Yeah.
around it. So whenever we're ready, let it go. It's got
Right.
something new to show us. So
That's right. Just
yeah,
looks, oh, I've got infinity.
exactly. So whenever you're ready, we're here.
I'll be with her.
Yeah, yeah, it's lovely.
Mm, great. Oh, so with with this deep connection and with allurement, I mean, it's a deep relationship with relationship. What seeds do you feel called to plant? I mean, what what do you personally um, feel that you are to do or to be?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
What's supposed to come through you as far as you know or don't know? Yeah.
Yeah. One thread that's been very strong for me for a long time is really exploring and sharing with others this idea that we're the personification of the universe. It's like we are the universe,
Mhm.
in our own particular unique form. But that seems to be very strong to me, just
Mhm.
needing to, embody that as much as possible, communicate that,
Yeah.
yeah, and just really hold that as a possibility. It's like, what does it mean to say, I am the universe,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
the universe is, expressing itself as
Mhm.
me?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I notice when I just try that on as I am universe, my posture changes when I really let that in. My posture changes, and there's a little bit of leaning in, but not like forcing, but that there's physiological and energetic and emotional shifts that happen
Mhm.
in letting that seed go in as possibility.
Yeah. And as you said, as a possibility, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mm.
And this is what the universe is doing now. It's
Mhm.
another kind of reminder. Sometimes
Mhm.
people get stuck on the I part. It's like, well, I can't be the universe because I'm not, such and such,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But just
Mhm.
this is how the universe is showing up right now, or this is what's happening right
Exactly.
now. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
It just has me think of it was a place was a question in it was when you were interviewing Brian Swim in your book
yeah.
Cosmizations and just popped in with what you were just saying. You said, it seems like cultures have to go through this process of questioning every now and then when they've gotten too small for what they truly are.
Mm, hmm.
Love that when they've gotten too small for what they truly are.
Yeah.
Um,
It's cultures, but also people, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that wondering actually is it's I think about the fairy tale. I don't even know if people know this fairy tale anymore, but it's The Princess and the Pea, where the princess is on a stack of mattresses and she can't sleep because underneath the very bottom mattress is this tiny little pea. And
Hmm.
the fairy tale is about the discomfort when there's something very, very small that is needing tending and
Yeah,
and so that sense of when we're questioning more or that sense of not knowing and uncertainty can actually be a signal for oh something a larger field is ready to open up.
yeah. Very much so. And also certainty can be a sign too, because if we feel like this is what my life is, it's full of routines, I feel stuck. That
Mhm.
stuckness is a sign that something larger wants to be born, but there's some
Yes.
identity that has to let go first in order for it to flow in fully.
Yay. Yes. Yes.
So yeah, so
That's
if people feel like they're uninspired, they're in a routine, it's like, oh, I just feel stuck in my life, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Well, that's a sign that something large is wanting to happen.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh boy. In fact, that I love that as a place for us to end and also to begin of what's with that sense of opening to we don't know what's next and we can discover that
exactly. With the universe will
with
be
the
there for
universe.
us, on the other
Right.
side, always.
That's right. Other side and inside. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow, Steve. Whew, thank you.
You.
Oh goodness. So I'm gonna do a little bit of wrapping up here. I want to thank you, of course, first of all, for your time, your energy, you're bringing yourself as Steve and yourself as universe into making s'mores uh, with us today. And also want to thank you for your offering of a gift of $3 off a copy of Cosmic Conversations or $3 off of a stargazing experience. With a sign up to Steve's mailing list. And so the details of how to do that are on the learn more section on underneath this YouTube video. And so that's how you can learn more about this offer. And thank you for that. And again, I have to make myself put this book down and go to work because it's just so energizing and enlivening. It's a series of conversations that Steve had with a number of scientists. They're all scientists in one way or another, Western or indigenous or spiritual. Would that be fair to say?
I would say scientists, yeah, native people, spiritual teachers, and
Yes.
cultural creatives, people who are
And
at a leading edge of culture and
that's
very
right.
innovative at the same
That's
time.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. And the what is said in there is timeless and very profound. So that's I can't recommend that enough.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So now how can people get in touch with you, Steve?
They can get in touch with me through my website,
Oh,
which is www.cosmicconversations.org.
mm-hmm. Okay.
I also have a Facebook page for my stargazing events, which is Cosmic Adventure Stargazing on Facebook.
Nice.
And then I'm also doing a lot of teaching and offering through the Deep Time Journey Network. And so
Ah,
they're welcome to be in touch with me through that wonderful network of people as
mhm.
well. So
That's right. The offerings of that network are just amazing and all good. It's they're just wonderful.
so
Yes,
inspiring and so needed at this time too. So yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes. Oh, thank you again, Steve, so much for.
Thank you, Marianne. I really enjoyed being in conversation with you.
Thank you. So, a little bit of a closing here. Some More Stories is an offering of Monterey Bay Meditation Studio in service of cultivating relationship of reverence and reciprocity with the outdoors. This relationship arises naturally as we realize our profound connection with the planet that we live on and universe of which we are part. For more information about this series, courses in the community of Monterey Bay Meditation Studio, please go to montereybaymeditation.com or check out our YouTube channel for additional recordings in this series. So, Steve, for um, each storyteller, I find a quote that resonates with my impression of that the storyteller and the story. Excuse me. And this is the quote that I found for you. This is from Harold Ramis. The universe is in a constant state of becoming, an ongoing miraculous creation. Every day, we awaken to that miracle with gratitude, respect, and compassion for all who share the gift of being. So, from the campfire under the night sky, this is Marianne Rowe wishing you warmth, some more sweetness, and awe. Thank you.